All right, I believe we're live streaming. Hello, everybody. It's good to have you with us tonight. It's good to have those listening through Power Faith Radio tonight. The Georgia group has already texted me. They just got 32. Well, I shouldn't say they just got 32. They got 32 with them tonight, and that's great. And we haven't heard from the coffee shop group in the past little while, and they text tonight and said they've been listening, and they just want to tell everybody hello. And everybody else listening on Power Faith Radio, we thank you for having you with us tonight. Also, if you're tuning in via YouTube, thank you so much. You can come on over to the Zoom room. Just go to a simple walk, and there you'll find the link to the Zoom room, and you can come on over. But if you need to stay there in the YouTube, that's okay. While you're there, subscribe to that channel, hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up, and share these videos with all your social media platform. While I'm on this subject, you can send us an email with any of your questions, and you can send that to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Terry, would you like to greet everybody in the Zoom room tonight?
All righty. Greetings, everyone. Again, thank you for coming to our Wednesday night Outreach Noah class. We got something a little different tonight. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. Scotty and I will. And tonight we've got Amwella, who we have been missing. Glad to see she's doing well tonight. And we got Ronald, and Thomas is back with us again. Of course, Scotty down in the engine room, keeping the ship on course. Hopefully, as long as you don't hit the wrong button.
Yeah, that's So let me tell you. While I know you're not through greeting everybody, but I'm driving a new little different car. It's a little car, and my phone comes up on the screen, and I'll be talking to people, thinking I'll pull up and I'm going to turn the car off, and I see this red button up there, and I'm thinking I'm turning the car off, but what I actually do is hang up on them. And so then I have to call them back. And so then I had to say, well, I thought I was turning the car off, So anyway, if it's red and it comes up, I'm going to touch it. So if just the meeting ends abruptly, you'll know what happened. So go ahead, Terry. I just want to say that it's not my fault. It's my age.
It's your age. All right. Of course, and we've got Bob with us again tonight, and Veronica. Veronica, are you still in Canada? Are you headed to South Dakota yet?
No, I will. I'm still in Saskatchewan, Canada, and I'll just be going over to Manitoba for about a week, and then, Hashem willing, I will start heading south.
There you go. Be careful up there.
I will.
We got Harold and Karen with us tonight, and Will. Chris just joined us, and we've got Fred has joined us, and we have Hetty has joined us. Greetings, everyone. And like we've always say each week, if you want to come and join us in the Zoom room, you can go over to a simple walk, and there's Scotty's got the links to the room there. Just click on in, and we'll let you on into the room. You don't have to be on camera. We have several that stay off camera every week, and that's okay. But you can come and join us if you want to here in the room. Scotty, any other announcements? Oh, announcements. See, the 4th and the 11th.
4th and the 11th.
We will not be having class. Scotty will be out of town, and so the engine room will have an out to lunch sign on it.
It'll be streaming. Just me be streaming through the air. It won't be streaming through the air.
Yeah. Right. So put that on your calendars. The 4th and the 11th. We won't be having class. Like I said, Scotty will be out of town. The engine room will be closed down, and gives us a little bit of a break, get caught up. And if you've got any questions that you gathered up during that, during our classes and stuff, feel free to get them over to Scotty and at Outreach Noah
at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. I hadn't said that one in a while. I took that one from you, Scotty. Okay. You can repeat it again. But anyhow, like I said, we'll talk about it here in a few minutes. We're going to do a class a little bit different tonight, and we'll get into that after Scotty does his Sadaka time. You ready, Scotty?
If I'm pronouncing, I had it hooked on phonics. So Hattie, is that Hattie? Is that how you spell that? Hattie, here for the first time tonight.
Eddie. I think it's a Hetty.
Hetty, I had hooked on phonics. So sometimes I wake up in the morning, I think my name's Scooty, but then I forgot it's, doesn't work that way. So, all right. So, Terry, I am going to not put you on speaker view tonight.
Nope.
But I do want to say this now. Just before we came on, some folks was talking about a picnic. It's about getting picnic time here in Tennessee.
Oh, it was picnic weather this morning,
Yeah.
and it's picnic weather this afternoon. The heat has died down.
And so, if you're in our area in the East and Middle Tennessee, now we got Will. He's down in kind of Will. You're in Tellico area, right? Is that where you're from? I don't.
Oh, Loudoun County.
Loudoun County. You're closer than Tellico to me then.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got Harold and Karen. They're down just into Georgia, if I got that right. And then Terry,
Alabama.
I'm Alabama. See, I'm not only did I had hooked on phonics, my map was turned upside down when I took geography. So, but anyway, but if you're in our area, please email us. We'd love to see you. We're going to try to put a picnic together and just meet and greet and eat. That's what Tennessee folk love to do. Meet and
love to eat.
All right, Terry, kick this thing off tonight. What are we going to talk about?
No,
tonight?
go ahead. You're going to do Sadaka?
Oh, yeah. I don't know where my mind is at tonight, Terry.
Scotty, you are working too much.
I'm going to have to go back to work so I can get some rest.
I'm going to tell you, what was it the other day? I called you, and it was, I sent him a message, said, hey, give me a call. And it was, about 7 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
And he was already under a house.
Which I got to go back under tomorrow. So
you got to quit that.
I know. It's yeah, we'll not talk about that. We are so glad everybody has sent us names this week, and those of you that has participated in our Sadaka time. And I apologize that I almost completely forgot it. Hold on, I got somebody texting me something over here. Let me just get that taken care of real quick. Sorry. Let's see. Well, okay. This is not a recording, but here we are. Now I've lost everybody. Have I lost? Now, no, you're here. Okay.
We're poking buttons again.
Yeah. So at least I didn't hit that red button on the right hand side. So as always, Terry and I give Sadaka for our teacher, our main teacher, and his wife. That's Pesach and Shira Sherbo in Sfat, Israel. And we so much appreciate them. And we're giving Sadaka tonight for Rabbi Moshe Shulman and everything he's doing. I saw today on my Facebook page that I had been friends with him for 5 years. And so I appreciate Rabbi Moshe Shulman and what he's doing. Also, we still have Jeremy Kibbe on our Sadaka list tonight. And Chrissy Seaton. How's Chrissy doing, Ronald? Have you talked to her? I'm sure you've talked to her this week.
Just a few days ago. Yeah, she's doing fine, actually. Yep, she's pretty happy and just taking it easy, but yep, she's getting through her days without any bother. Yeah.
Okay. Also tonight on our Sadaka list is Kelly Conrad. Kelly Conrad is on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, William and Tina Lyons. That's my employers, and they asked me to remember them in this night of Sadaka. Also, Nadine Akins is on our Sadaka list tonight. Let me get this over here. And then Clifford Hoole. Clifford Hoole is on our Sadaka list tonight. Be praying for Clifford. And then also Warwick Marshall. Have you heard anything from Warwick, Ronald?
No, I haven't been able to catch up with him. He's been not around for a little while now, so I'll keep trying, but hopefully I'll get to him.
Okay. And also, somebody always sends in a dollar bill to put in the pot from. They put Anuela's name on one, so we appreciate them doing that. And they also send one for Veronica Port, and they also send one for Thomas Schaus. Also on our Sadaka list tonight is we still have Ronald on there. So Ronald, we're just keeping you on there. I know you say you're doing pretty good. So how you doing, Ronald?
Yeah. I've had some extensive pain on and off during the week, but that's just normal at the moment until we get the investigation underway. But other than that, yeah, things are good. I can get past those issues.
Okay. Okay, good deal. We're going to keep you on our Sadaka list. Also, Wendell texted me just prior to our meeting starting tonight and said he was going to have to be watching on YouTube, and we're giving Thanksgiving Sadaka for Wendell and Mary Parsons. Also on our blessed memory list tonight is Craig O'Neill. Craig O'Neill is on our blessed memory list tonight. We're giving that in for his behalf, for his merit. Would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For we know that you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry. Now, are you ready to kick off this conversation? And Terry, I'd like you to do a lead in why we are going to be discussing this particular topic tonight.
Well, what we're going to be doing tonight, I don't have anything specifically like laid out lesson wise. That's why I kind of titled tonight's class more like a fireside chat, where we're just going to talk about this particular subject. I've got a variety of passages that the Creator has given us toward this subject. And what I was following some threads here over the last couple of weeks and seen some things, and that kind of sparked, I guess, re-sparked the idea of wanting to discuss this issue. We've touched on it a little bit in the past, and I know Scotty, he loves getting into this discussion with people some. But the question is what are you? What are you? And I just seen people. There's so much confusion today because of everything seems to be having to have a label to it, tag to it, that you have to be, a label. You have to identify as, something. And so the question is, what are you? And there's people who identify. I don't even like the word to say identify, but I hear conversations all the time around me, especially being here in the South. People, will often say, they label themselves after their religion or after their sin, which we'll get into that later. Some people even label themselves after the sin that they have struggled with. We're going to look at what the Creator has, how he, and what he calls humanity. And we're just going to look at a few things, and especially, with this class being Outreach Noah, and the term Noahide is mentioned a lot, and there's a lot of confusion on what that term is, and what it is not. And so I want to kind of discuss a little bit about that, because some people actually go off the bandwagon with these, with the labels, though, well, I don't see that word in the Bible. Well, I don't see cheeseburger either, but you know what? Place down the road's got one. Just because a term may not be in the Holy Writ doesn't mean it doesn't exist and doesn't have a meaning to it. So I don't see Toyota, Ford, and Chevrolet in there either, but we all drive them. So, but I'm just, want to talk just a little bit like fireside chat. And I've asked Scotty and, and Chris and Bob didn't want to join in too, because we've all had experiences in these areas where, a few years ago when I was at work, I was talking to this lady, and I don't even remember how the conversation happened. It was one time during break, and subject kind of came up, and she was a Catholic, and she was one of the few actually Catholic people actually have met and known in this area. Not saying they're not here. There are places here. I've never really been around many of them because other particular Christian denominations are very, more prominent. And so when we got to talking, and so that was what her question. Well, what are you? And so I just got to thinking about that this week and wanted to talk about this subject because I know that some of these terms can be confusing. Are they necessary? What do they mean? What's their purpose? It's nothing actually new. In the book of Jonah, there's something very similar. In the book of Jonah and his situation with Jonah on the boat there with all these guys, and the storm had come up. The Creator had sent this storm, and they was all praying to their own gods. He was asleep down in the hold, and they went to go get him. And so they even asked Jonah all the way back, a couple thousand years ago. And he says, they ask in verse 8, says, what is your trade? And from where do you come? And what is your land? And of what people are you? What are you? They even asked Jonah. Jonah's answer was, I'm an Ivri. That's the Hebrew word for Hebrew. Ivri. I'm an Ivri. And the Creator, Hashem God, the God of the heavens, do I fear, who made the sea and the dry land. So we see even here, all the way back in the time of Jonah, they want to know who he was. What was he? And so it's not a, something new, but it seems to be today we're more label minded than the ancients was. Scotty, what you got?
You want me to ask a question on this?
Yeah, just whatever. We're like I said, we're going to do this different tonight. We're going to have a little chat about the subject, and we're going to see where it goes. I've got passages I do want to cover that I found interesting in the subject, and we're going to lead over here into a few minutes about certain particular people within the scripture. But I'll bring it up here in just a minute. But go ahead, Scotty.
Here is my first question, and I'm going to throw this on everybody. It seems that everybody relates a title as religion. So I'm just going to jump right into this. What is religion? Huh? Yeah. What is religion, and why is the title, and I'm going to use the title Noahide, B'nai Noach, whatever. Why is that not a religion, but freedom from religion? Or is it a religion?
Or you want me to answer that? You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Well, in the text and in the technical Webster dictionary sense, it is a religion, because Webster's dictionary lists that if you have a code of ethics and morals, that's like a code or a creed, belief in a deity, they consider that as a religion. Of course, we're looking at the man-made, the man-made religion, the way it's put there. So technically in Webster's dictionary, it would be, but like Israel, it isn't. And we're going to see that here in a few minutes. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay. So I'm going to throw another one in. So it's It's not a religion. It's called a religion. What is the main basis, the number one thing? I know we've got things that are our, I don't want to use, I'm going to use the word obligations, responsibilities, things of that nature. You know, we've got setting up courts of justice and no cruelty to animals, no forbidden relationships, don't steal, don't murder. I think I'm getting them all in, and don't curse God. I think that's, and then the number one is no idolatry. So what is that our main reasoning is coming out of idolatry the main reason that we are not, that we are considered pious of the nations or who we are?
Right.
Did I ask that correctly? Because you know all the other things are basic, like you know don't steal, don't murder, don't no cruelty towards animals, no forbidden relations, and setting up courts of justice, and you know of course don't curse God. But it seems that the main thing is coming out of idolatry.
Right. That is the big one for Israel to recognize who we are. That's how we relate. We relate with Israel. Is that's the big one, especially if you're going to live amongst them. You know, in their especially in their land and everything. But you know, when you know, like I said, people will ask you, what are you? And sometimes it seems like a struggle, like, you know, well, what am I? I mean, when we looked into the mirror and asked that question to ourselves, when, you know, what are you looking at, you know, you're in your own eyes, what are you? And some of the things I hear around me being in the religious South, and I'm not picking and I'm not bashing. I'm just going to say, this is what I hear because this is where I live. You know, people, you know, they're Buddhists, they're Hindus and things like that. But I live in the Christian South, which most of us all were either part of, born into, raised, whatever in that.
Somebody in your family's a preacher.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'll hear, and when you're outside of this for a while, for many years, it becomes distasteful because I hear the person is either, you know, a good or bad Christian, good, bad Muslim, good, bad religion. And I work with a Baptist pastor, and there's been some things he said this week, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, they always want to blame, you know, the evil one for all the evil things. And I'm like, God, quit blaming him. He's just the tempter. He didn't make the choice to follow the temptation. It's the human beings. I said, in the end, you know, we're going to read it here in a little bit in Ecclesiastes. In the end, the human being is the one who's going to be judged. And so I basically wanted to lead into the issue of what the Creator, how does God, I mean, He doesn't look at us according to our beliefs, our faith, and our religious statuses, whatever that may be. You know, so what does he you know, what does he look at us at? And so I wanted to look at, and like I said, I didn't want to come off with anything canned tonight. I wanted to be conversational. And Chris and y'all can jump in at any time, because I know you and I had a little bit of a discussion about this. I want us to look at a few very interesting, or predominantly two very interesting people. The first one is Noah. in Noah, in the Parshat Noah, in the Torah, in Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, the Creator had Moses write this down in description of Noah. He said, this is the offspring, this is the product of Noah. And in the Hebrew, it says he's an Ish Sadik Tamim. God said Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. The Tamim actually means that he was not just perfect, but he was simple and innocent in his righteousness and his morality. And this is pre-Sinai. Okay. Then we have this other feller over here. We find it's interesting. His name's Job. And I got a couple bookmarks on this. In the first verse, it says, there was a man in the land of Uz. Job was his name. Now, the man was unquestioning integrity, coupled with probing mind. He stood in the awe of God, and he shunned evil. And even the Creator, when he was talking to the prosecutor, the adversary, the Hasatan, which we'll cover that in a different subject. Even the Creator, when he was having that conversation, says, have you taken note to my servant, who there is none like him on the earth, a man of unquestioning integrity, coupled with a probing mind, who fears God and shuns evil. What's interesting is these two people are the two examples that the sages of Israel says that are for us, those of the nations, because these two people are not Israelites. They're not Jewish, as we would say it in today's terms. They are Noah is our patriarch of our people. That's actually where the word Noahide comes from. In the Hebrew, it's called B'nai Noach, or the son or children of Israel. I mean, not Israel, but of Noah. And Noahide, that's just a modern term, but it has spiritual connotations with it as well. Then we have Job. And so when we look even at Job, we looked at Noah, where it says he's a man who is simply righteous and simply moral. With Job, what we find, flip back over here in the first verse, Job in the Hebrew, he's a Tom Yasher. He is a simple, innocent, upright person who fears God and shuns evil. See, this is what the Creator looks. He looked at these two men, and this is what he says they are. See, when he created man, when he created Adam, he didn't give him a religion. He gave him a job to do, a commandment to fulfill. Noah didn't have one. What was the religion of Noah? Noah doesn't relate himself to any, I'm a good fill in the blank, or I'm a bad fill in the blank. No, the Creator is the one who actually calls Noah right. We don't call ourselves righteous. That's kind of an arrogant thing. It could get you in a little bit of trouble. We don't do that. The Creator is the one that looks at our lives, and he denotes. But he tells us in his holy scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, that you're either simply righteous and simply moral, or you're simply upright, you fear God and you shun evil, or you're a Rasha, or you're wicked. Those are the terms that the Creator used in describing a human being. And that's one of the things I just like. I don't know if I've just been touchy with it here lately, because I get tired of people saying, well, they're a good, name the religion. They leave out the humanity of the person. It's like they sidestep and want to determine whether you are the good or bad religion. Like I said, fill in the blank. And I've been like kind of standing up. I said, no, they're human beings. You are not your religion. And then there's in this group, and I'm not putting them down, they're a good group. They have saved lives, they have saved families. And I would recommend anybody that has a problem to follow their program and help overcoming. But one of the horrible things this group does, and I'll just tell you, it's AA. When you start seeing these things in the pastors, they get up and say, hey, my name is Timmy, and I'm an alcoholic. They are making a statement with speech. It comes out of their mouth, which has power to give life and to give death. And they are announcing to the universe that they are their sin. When in Genesis 4:7, God says you can overcome that. He says you can actually be restored in Genesis 4:7 to your original state. And once you have repented and once you have left that sin, you're not that sin. And that does damage to the person's soul when you constantly call yourself, I am a fill in the blank, adulterer, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a rapist, I'm a whatever. That may be the sin you committed, but that's not what you are unless that's your lifestyle. But if you're trying to overcome that, you are no longer that. And so that's the reason why I'm saying, what are you? What are we? What are we considering ourselves? It's something that, I feel a subject that maybe we need to cover. It's just something that's been on my mind probably over the last month. But when we see the two examples, the non-Jewish examples in the Holy Scriptures, we see that God either says you're upright and you're righteous, you're moral, you're ethical, you fear him, you shun evil, or you're wicked. Those are the choices that the Creator gives us in what we are. And that's all humanity. That's Jew and non-Jew. That's everybody on the planet. And see, these are the things, Scotty, it's kind of been on my mind for a couple of weeks when I see people struggling with these terms. And I've used that term, Noahide, as myself to kind of, but most people, especially if they've not studied, the scriptures and learn the things that we have learned and from the sages of Israel, they got the deer in the headlight, look, and that's to be expected, And I've kind of grown to, I don't like labels. I mean, if you've heard me, I don't like labels anymore. I don't want to be in a bubble. I was born and raised in a bubble. That bubble popped. I went and found another bubble, got in it. Well, that bubble popped. And then I went to go get into another bubble, and praise God, that bubble didn't get formed. I'm not in a bubble anymore. And that's just something that, what I'm saying, Scotty? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm muted. I didn't realize I was muted. So while you was talking, the question arose back. So what are we calling a religion? but I went over here to the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I did not know this, but the phrase and word religion was first recorded in 1150 to 1200. In between that 50-year period, Middle England religion. So it wasn't early. This is a later title given to people who would place themselves under certain responsibilities.
Right. Well, even in the Hebrew language that comprise the Hebrew scriptures, there's not, that word doesn't even exist.
What would be a if I can just run with this right here, what would be a word that is thought of? Is there a word in the Hebrew language that would put us in a position of religion? Is there a word in Hebrew?
The word that is used in the Hebrew, and this is how the Hebrews, and they don't hear the word religion like we do in the English language. When we're looking at it through purely a Hebrew biblical stance, it is the word da'at. It's knowledge. And so when you hear the sages talking about religions, kind of what we would think it is in our English language. And I've even had one of my rabbis that I consult with, he even explained this to me, that technically, according to the Hebrew scriptures, it is the knowledge of Christianity. It's the knowledge of Buddhism. It's the knowledge of Islam. It is the knowledge of Hinduism. It's the knowledge of that thing, that subject. And so that's how it is viewed. And it's, then that in itself is a thought process of me understanding knowledge. That is the knowledge of.
I'm about to read something that's I'm just now reading this since you brought this up.
And we can throw other things too. The knowledge of atheism, the knowledge of whatever it is that man had, whatever title that man had created for himself to place himself in.
It's funny that the word religion is more commonly used on beliefs concerning the cause or nature or purpose, and as the creation of a superhuman, worshiping a superhuman. That's when we first find.
Where was that at?
That's Encyclopedia Britannica. So I just
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I'm just reading this. I didn't either. And it gives here a couple of ones, and like you said, the Christian religion, Buddhist religion, one that formulates around a particular superhuman. That's okay. So we better get off that.
So, like I said, this is not for the purpose to bash anything.
Right.
I just wanted to bring up the subject.
So are we considered?
What are we? Huh?
Are we considered religious? Are we considered a religion?
Let me read you this passage from King Solomon, the wisest man to walk on the earth. It's found in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 2. And it's one of them I found when I was just researching, looking at things, contemplating things. I thought about like trying to make a teaching out of this stuff, and I decided, no, let's just have a chat. Let's just talk about the subject instead of teaching, in that format. Let's just talk about it. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2, it says, one who walks in his uprightness fears the Creator. And here we have that word again, Yasher. And it's one who walks in his uprightness, fears God. And I found, it's interesting, And a lot of places where you find the word yasher, which is translated being upright, is connected with fearing God. It is with Job and some others that I found when it was talking about using this word yasher, upright, being upright. But King Solomon says, one who walks in his uprightness. And so I found it interesting here that the sages teaches on this passage. This is from Bina La'itin. A righteous person fears God continuously, even as he follows the straight path, for he is concerned lest he has not fulfilled all of his obligations to the fullest. An upright person has obligations to the Creator. And this is part of his fear. And the fear is awe. There's different levels of fear. And I'll read that here in just a second. Then he goes on, and the Vilna Gaon goes on and says, the one who walks in his uprightness, each person must walk a path that suits his own nature. Since no two natures are alike, each individual has his own temptation to sin. One must determine for himself what precautions will protect him from these situations. The person who follows a path that is proper for him is the one who fears God. So we all have here, now we have the sage, the Vilna Gaon, talking about that each of us have our own particular temptations that, you know, again, we mentioned it earlier. You might be an alcoholic, you might have lust, there could be temptations that's, you know, for some people, they can walk into a room and see a $5 bill laying onto a table and they're not even tempted to take it and they just go on. Then you walk into some people walk into a room, the first thing they do is they pick it up and put it in their pocket. You see what I'm saying? So one man's tempted with that and another man's not. So this is what the Vilna Gaon says. Each person must walk the path that suits his own nature. And so that connects with the fear of God, the awe of God that is within that person. He's going to put precautions around himself to protect him so that he can fulfill his obligations. So what are our obligations? That is what you mentioned before. Our obligations is not to be idolaters, not to be blasphemers, not to be murderers, not to be, thieves, not to be swayed by forbidden sexual relations and temptations. So these are our obligations. And so what I'm getting at here is when we begin to think about what are we, I keep coming up to this word upright. We are upright people who walk in the fear of God and shun evil. And that's one of the things that I keep running into as we're not a particular label. The Creator. I want to read two passages here. One, I'm going to do this before I get over. We're going to go back to about Noah. I found interesting. I read this morning when I was doing my studies. It's interesting. In Ezekiel chapter 12, make sure I've got that down. Ezekiel chapter 12, chapter 14, sorry. Chapter 14, verses 12 through 14. Ezekiel 14, 12 through 14. The word of the Creator came to me, prophet Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, when a country sins against me, this was very sobering for me as I think about our country. Rick at work the other day read the platform of the particular group that's having their convention, and oh my, I'm just going to say their platform, according to their own words, scares me after I read this. When a country sins against me, acting with treachery, and I stretch out my hand against it, and to break its staff of bread, to dispatch famine against it, and eliminate man and beast from it. And in verse 14, then even if these three men would be in its midst, and it's interesting, the three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, two non-Jews and a Jew. Even if they were in the midst of that nation, by their righteousness would they save their own soul. The word of the Lord God spoken. By their own righteousness. And so we see the Creator here again. He doesn't list the belief system of these men. He says, by their righteousness, what we read in Genesis chapter 6-9, when it talks about Noah, that he was an ish and tzaddik tamim, that he was a simple righteous man, a simple moral and morally pure man. We see here that when the Creator was looking at these three men, he defined them by their actions, not their beliefs. Where most religions described you according to your belief and not your actions.
I like something, Bob, if I can, it's in the text, so I'm going to have to, you put it to everybody, so I'm going to read it. So I like what Bob says, which this is so true, because y'all know me, I talk and deal with a lot of people of different faiths, different beliefs. But what Bob has put here is really, we must understand this is so true. The trouble with discussing the topic of religion is every person thinks of their belief as true while thinking of everyone else as false.
That is, and you run into that.
Yeah, all the time. And let's see where to get to. If others are following a religion, then one sees himself as being not a religion. So that is something.
That is true. So what we're looking at here is not necessarily, when someone asks, and it can be hard because of our society that we are in is expecting a label. And that label is the description within itself. And that sometimes, and it's hard when, and it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily hard like in difficulty, but, how do you tell someone, that you're walking an upright path? Probably the best and most ancient term that was used, even 1,000 years ago, 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, is what we'd say in Hebrew, Yirat Hashem, or Yirat Hashemayim, the fear of God, or fear of or the fear of heaven, that you're a God-fearer. And we can see that with God being in God-fear, it connects with being a yasher, an upright person. It connects with being a tzaddik, a righteous person. So it takes, calling yourself a God-fearer takes you away from being labeled a particular belief, but you're putting yourself back in the point that God made us human beings. And he's the only one we owe anything to. And it's hard to sometimes talk about these things with people who is more only knowledgeable within the religion that they've been born in, like, most of us, all of us. And we don't talk about this situation. Like the other day, got talking about the homeless in a particular city and how they were going to be driving the homeless out from this one area. And there was this one particular religious center that was there, and they were feeding and clothing the homeless with the condition that they would only that they had to attend 3 services at that place a month. And I went, whoa, wait a minute here. No, you feed and clothe the homeless and the poor and the widow because they're human beings. Not that you have an agenda other than to be human. See, that's where we've gotten so far away from our humanity that we see people as what they are in their belief. We see people what we can do for them according to our belief instead of the humanity that God created. And I see that's part of what God is doing. He's opening our minds to get away from these bubbles and return back to our pure human status and our obligations. That's the obligations, the uprightness, the righteousness, the morality, the ethics is the obligation of the human being. We're just human. What are you? I'm a human being. Do I fall? Yeah. Mm-hmm. God made me that way. But he also gave me the gift of repentance too, to pick myself up. Genesis chapter 4:7. I can conquer this. I can restore my status as a pure soul. Most people aren't told that. Most people aren't told that you can have your soul restored to its pure status. We'll talk about that some other time. When we get into the book of Genesis, we're going to start studying the book of Genesis. When we finish this other book, we're going to just take some time and look through, probably just go through Genesis 1 through chapters 1 through 9. Look at these things. But this is just something that's been on my mind a lot as we've been seeing what's going on in our world, and everybody identifying these weird, perverse things, and I don't know, just identifying this and that. And it's a form that our society is trying to rob us of our humanity in which God created. Go ahead, Scotty.
No, I was going to say one of my platforms, if I can say it that way, that I've had since I was a teenager, started in ministry. One of my wife and I's platforms, we've always heard we need to clean up the schools. We need to clean up the streets. One of my platform was you need to first clean up your coffee table. And then the streets will take care of themselves. So, we clean it. It's at home is where we start. And so that just come to my mind. So getting back to the subject of who we are, what we are. Of course, it's hard to describe this. And I got a couple of questions that come in. So if you're not a religion, what are you? That's
my question of the night.
Okay. If you're not a religion, what are you?
That's the question. Okay.
And if religion is based on a superhuman, and I read that out, I've got pulled up over here still in Encyclopedia Britannica, then where does idolatry fall into that? Isn't that itself idolatry? And if you give that up, does that mean you are non-religious then? Wow, that's
well,
that went around like Bob's over there. The trouble with discussing
we have another example in 2 Kings chapter 5 and verse 15. We have the story of Naaman. Some people say Naaman. Naaman. And the story that happened, with what's going around with him. And he was an idolater. What's interesting, Scripture also tells us that God also blessed him. I don't have the chapter up here in front of me. I just wrote this passage down. But in chapter 5 of 2 Kings, verse 15, and it says, and he, Naaman, returned to the man of God, Elisha. He says, he and his entire camp, and he came before him, Elisha, and stood, and he made this declaration. Behold, I now know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Naaman converted. Now, that's a word that brings on a lot of confusion. Converted, according to the dictionary, I think dictionary.com or the Webster's, means to make a change. He converted to the God of Israel. So did the men on the boat. The sages of Israel said that the men on the boat with Jonah converted. They left their idolatry of whatever gods they were praying to at the beginning of the story. And they converted, and now they knew that there was only but one God, the God of the Ivrim, the God of heaven and earth, who made the sea and all that everything was in it. And it's not a religion. And I didn't really intend for this subject to be, religion versus whatever, but it's going to turn that way anyhow. This is the main thing, And when Naaman talked to Elisha, and he said, now I've got to go with, his general. I've got to go to the temple when he prays to the God of such and such. I've got to be there. I've got to kneel next to him. What do I do? Because I no longer believe and pray to that God. He said, well, go in peace. And that's when we get into the subjects of idolatry. As our commandment, there are 4 specific acts that we're not supposed to do, which we're not going to get into that tonight. We'll get into it over and over again as we study the 7 laws as given to Adam through Noah, passed down to us, and re-ratified in the Torah at Mount Sinai and given to the authority of Moses for Israel to teach the world. But that's what we do. We convert to the God of Israel, who is the creator. They are the priesthood, his holy children. Exodus 4:22. Exodus 4:22. When he told Moses, go to Pharaoh and say, behold, Israel is my son, my firstborn. And so they were given the Torah, which explains what the uprightness is that we're supposed to walk by. And it's interesting, like I said, Ezekiel, the creator, brought up 3 righteous men out of all of the Hebrew scriptures. The creator brought up 3 righteous men in this conversation that he was given Ezekiel: Noah, Daniel, and Job. 2 Gentiles and a Jew. He called them all 3 righteous. They were all 3 upright according to the Creator. And that's what we learn. And when we walk in this, it creates the world that the Creator wants us to live by. When we look at Isaiah chapter 2, in the future, when all the nations who had come against Israel will come to Israel, and says, let's go up to mount of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we'll walk in his paths, which is found in Genesis 18, Sadaka and Mishpat. The world will live by this uprightness. It will be taught it, and it will go back into the nations. When they learn these things, they're not going to stay in Jerusalem. They're going to go back to the nations and take these paths of uprightness and righteousness and live by them. In Ezekiel, not in Ezekiel, but Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes, this is Scotty's and our teacher's favorite verse. He talked to us about this passage over and over again, didn't he, Scotty?
Yeah.
Ezekiel chapter 12 in verse 13 and 14. This is kind of go to the question that was asked a while ago, then what are we? When the sum of the matter, when all has been considered, fear God, keep his commandments. Most English says, for this is the whole duty of man, but that's not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew says, Kizeh ho ha'adam. For this is the whole man. So if we're not a religion, then what are you? You are to be a whole man, a whole person. And that whole person fears God and keeps the commandments. That is what we are supposed to. That's what makes us a complete person. That's what we are. And in the commandments here, when it says commandments, it is the commandments that's given you to observe. Well, how do I know what to observe? That's what Israel's duty is, to teach us. Because even in Israel, they were given 613 commandments, but not all the Jews were permitted to keep all of them. There were some that was for the whole community, everyone. Then there were some for men, some for women. There's some for the Levites, and then some for the priests among the Levites. And even if you were a Jew, keeping all the commandments of God, and you want to just a normal everyday person from let's say the tribe of Asher or Zebulun, and one day you decide, well, I'm going to go keep the commandment to clean the ashes off the altar in the temple, you could lose your life because that commandment wasn't given to you. It was given to the priest, the Kohanim. And so even God segregated the commandments among Israel, that there was different commandments. Even there were some for the whole community, and then there were some for specific parts of the community. And that's the same thing with the world. There are commandments given to Israel because they're separated. They're his holy people. They're the priesthood. Then there are commandments for you and I, because he doesn't leave us out. The whole man, Adam, he doesn't separate mankind here. King Solomon writes this in his wisdom. It's for all of mankind. So we need to learn what our responsibilities are. Just like what we read earlier, that we are to, to fully, to complete our obligations. Well, what are those obligations? And those, what we teach, the 7 laws, which we were handed down by Scotty and our teachers, which it was handed it down from the sages of Israel. It goes back thousands of years, what the responsibility of the human beings are. And I find it interesting when, again, we go back to Ezekiel and the Creator brings up 2 Jews and a non-Jew. Well, there's more non-Jews in the world when he brought up 2 non-Jews and a Jew. There are more non-Jews in this world. We're the largest part of God's creation, and we're not left out of an obligations to maintain his planet, to maintain the humanity. So what are you? Well, you're a whole person. I fear God and keep his commandments. I'm a God-fearer. I fear God and keep his commandments. And doing so, you become a whole man. a whole person. Verse 14, God will judge every deed, everything hidden, whether good or evil. God doesn't say here, I'm going to judge you by your religion, that you were a bad Buddhist. You were a bad Hindu. You were a bad Shinto. No. God will judge every deed and every hidden, whether good or evil. What are we? We are our actions. We are what we do. That's what we are. And if you're an alcoholic and you confess you're an alcoholic, then you're an alcoholic. But if you've repented and you're no longer taking part of that sin, you're no longer an alcoholic. You're no longer a rapist. You're no longer a murderer or a thief. Whatever sin that you're trapped in, if you've overcome it, according to Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, you have been restored back to your original state. You are not your sin. Quit doing that. One of the most horrible things after I learned this years ago is that saying, that I am a sinner saved by grace. I'm not a sinner, folks. Do I sin? Yeah, everybody does. Matter of fact, here in Ecclesiastes, right here, it says in Ecclesiastes chapter, also in here in chapter 7, verse 20 says, for there is no man who is so wholly righteous on earth that he always does good and never sins. Just because you sin and fall doesn't mean you're not righteous. It's just not no man is completely 100% righteous. Because you sin doesn't mean you're unrighteous. Everybody falls. But what are we? To answer the question of what we are our actions. And that's what God judges us by. And that's what God categorizes us by. By your actions, you're either righteous, upright, or you're wicked. Go ahead, Scotty.
So I got a couple of people talking on the radio, and Bob has taken and placed in here a question that is actually, Bob, it just seems like you're reading the emails, the little texts over here of these people, because you formulated exactly how they're asking this question. If a person of another faith is living uprightly, is that enough?
I'm not gonna say that it's enough, but I will say this. We'll go back to Jonah in answering this question. One day we'll go through the book of Jonah. It'll take us probably not as long as it has the 7 gates. Jonah chapter 3, where the king tells the people, everyone must turn back from his evil way and from the robbery, the hummus, which is in their hands. He who knows, let him repent. God will be relentful. Verse 10, it says, and God saw their deeds. He didn't see their sackcloth and ashes. He didn't see the religious ritual and act of in that format. He saw their deeds, that they had stopped their evil ways and theft. The sages said they went so far that if they had stolen, and I'm going to use modern language, this is the way it's put in by the sages of Israel, that if someone stole a 2x4 and built and used it in their house to build a wall, part of the wall, that 2x4 was removed and returned back to its owner. They started returning the things that they had stolen back to their owners. And God saw their deeds, that they repented from their evil way and relented from concerning the calamity that he was to bring upon them. The sages of Israel teaches us that not one pagan temple was torn down, not one pagan ritual or worship system was changed. They were saved by their deeds of putting away their evil ways, evil deeds. The sages says the reason why at that time is that their idolatry hadn't reached the level for God to punish them at such that their deeds, that their theft and their evil ways, which was their actions against man to man, was so bad that it was going to bring their destruction. And that's what brought the flood. Was the robbery that was going on at the time had reached such a level. Even though idolatry and other things were going on, it was actually the idolatry. I mean, not the idolatry, but the robbery, which is a forceful, wicked form of theft, had reached a level that caused man to be destroyed. It was the same sin that was going to bring upon Nineveh. But the sages says the sin of idolatry wasn't at the level that brought destruction. So, that being said, that was a major thing that I learned that changed my life and the way I look at people of other beliefs and religions, whether it be Hindus, and things. I hold a little bit of different view with the atheist, because Solomon says, it's a fool who says there is no God. I look at them a little bit different. And, I'm talking about as a group, not any, I don't know any individuals. Well, I do know a couple of individuals that are professing atheists. Can a person in another religion receive blessings from the Creator? It's all through the Torah. It does. Even before Naaman knew the God of Israel, it says that God had blessed him in some of his victories and stuff like that. Yes, they can. We have evidences they can. That if they're walking in upright ways according to their. It's what's interesting is God brings a lot of attention to the way we treat each other. And not in the three examples that we have where God got involved, Nineveh, the flood, and Sodom and Gomorrah, had none of those had anything to do with idolatry. Although it was there, it was part of the sins, but it wasn't the cause. It wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, as we say it today. And so yes, some people of other religions, if they're walking in an upright way, if they're not thieves, if they're not murderers, they're not running around in forbidden sexual relations in weird ways, they may have misguided beliefs in who God is. He looks at the way they treat each other. They're human beings around them, and he looks at them first. All the examples I find in the scriptures and what I see in the writings, it doesn't excuse that you should stay there. It just said they hadn't reached the level, that their idolatry hadn't reached the level for God to intervene and bring destruction. What level is that? I don't know. But we know that our uprightness and our righteousness goes to that next level when we do what Naaman does, and we convert to the God of Israel, and we say there is no other God in the earth other than the one in Israel. But human beings, if I remember right, the Rambam calls these people wise. They're the wise of the nations. They're not the pious. They're not the righteous of the nations, but they're wise. And they hold a level of wisdom in walking in upright ways. But they don't walk in a righteousness according to the Torah. I hope that explains that, Scotty.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I've always I'm going to say this humbly. I've always saw myself as someone who cares for other people. But what made me leave that path, I'm still doing that. I still care for other people.
Oh no, we're supposed to.
Yeah, and I
we,
care
we
for
don't look at a person's belief in how we decide
right.
to take care of their needs as a human being.
So in caring for people, caring for creation, we'll say caring for humanity, and I find that where I get my, I'm going to call it peace or knowing or relief, is that I have realized there is only one God.
Yeah, there's just the one God.
Yeah. In others, you know what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, as an example, my wife and I are going to go here this year and do something we hadn't done before. My wife and I both work for Capital Toyota, and she has had this one particular. She's behind the scenes in internet sales where people call in or whatever and ask questions, kind of preliminary questions in buying a car. She's the girl behind the scenes, like the associates, help her. And she's had this guy that she's worked with for 2 years. Called in 2 years ago and said, "Hey, I'm going to buy a Tacoma, but I'm not ready." So she's hung with him, checked in on him every other month or so. And in one of her check-ins here the other day, he said, "Yeah, I'm ready now," after 2 years. And they've kind of got to know each other over that 2-year period of time. And he lives up in, you probably heard Scotty's little town up here called Dayton. And he's got a little program that he does that feeds people on Thanksgiving. Last year, they fed 1,000 people. And it was held at one of the community churches up there because they had the space to do it. Big old room, big old fellowship hall where they could set up a table that would hold 1,000 people. And so, or take care of 1,000 people coming in and going in. So we're going to go in and help serve food. Are they completely where I'm at in my walk with God? No. But I don't look at that. I'm not denying myself the opportunity to go help feed the homeless and the poor over that situation. So yes, we can join forces in doing the upright things with God without being enemies per se. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's a journey. I would say, I mean, we don't, the Creator doesn't give us the journey of Naaman after that point that much, but it would have been interesting to know how that statement in verse 15 there that he made that public statement that I know now that there's no other God on earth but the God of Israel. It'd been interesting to see how that statement had affected the rest of his life. And he still was serving his master, general, who was still a pagan. But he went on with his life. He left what he was and became something totally new. So it'd been interesting to know, as Paul Harvey used to say, now I'm telling my age, the rest of the story. So I just wanted to bring this subject up tonight. What are you? And that, what are we? We are what we do. We are to be, if we're going to be a whole man, then what we do needs to be centered around fearing God and doing what he expects of us as a human being.
All right, Terry. Are we ready to come for a close tonight? An hour and 20 minutes.
Chris was quiet tonight.
It was quiet. It was quiet. Just a lot of contemplating, thinking about what's said, things of that nature. So
we've talked a little bit about this here a couple days ago on the subject of what are we?
Yeah.
It's kind of part of what stirred, as Hercule Poirot of Agatha Christie, got the little gray cells going on.
I think, Christopher, what are you fixing to add something to this?
I'm just taking it all in because it's everything that I've thought about for the past 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Same here.
And people really love putting labels on stuff.
Yeah.
When you look at the basic, I don't even want to say necessity, but just to be a decent person, you have to do those main things in order to, number one, be decent, but number two, get along and help everyone else and be involved within a so-called community.
Yeah. So since you brought up community, what you're talking about in community is outside our front door or separated from outside our front door?
Outside our front door.
Yeah.
It's not anyone at a compound, anyone in a 4-block radius. It's right outside your door.
Yeah.
When you're at work, when you're at the store, when you're at the bank, when you're walking down the street, when you're at the park.
And those and our communities contains a variety of forms of humanity. And
Correct.
Some of those people, we may not agree with the choices they have made, but they no less are still our community.
Yeah.
And how we treat them is how we're going to be judged.
You're not going to turn around and ask them, "Hey, before I help you, what are you?"
Right.
You're not going to do that. You're just going to help them because they're the next person.
They may be in a relationship status that we don't agree with, that
Right.
maybe even the Torah doesn't agree with. That even though the Torah may not agree, and even God may not agree with how that person is living, that doesn't give us the right to treat them inhumanly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If they fall in need, if they fall naked, if they fall hungry, if they fall jobless, we still have the responsibility to help them out, to fulfill their basic human need. We can fulfill their basic human need without joining and agreeing with their causes or however they are. But we have an obligation to supply humanity with this basic human need to live as a human being. And those people are in our community too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring us to a close. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate everybody talking on Power Faith Radio. I
hope it turned out okay, because I didn't come in really planned.
Yeah.
This is why it was called a fireside chat. We're going to just get together and talk about it. We might do this from time to time, Scott.
The only thing we didn't have was the marshmallows
and the hot dogs over the fire.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of marshmallows, I don't know how many of y'all folks been camping. And I was in our youth group. Our pastor taught us something real dangerous. It's called a marshmallow fight.
Oh, goodness, Terry.
Who's been in a marshmallow fight where you heat that puppy up and you fling it?
Only Terry.
You know what?
Thomas is left
poor Mr. Fentress, who is the pastor that married my wife and I. He was similar to you, except he had a little bit right here. I thumped one at him and it was burning this stuck. Sorry, you had to bring up marshmallows.
Okay.
You brought up a memory.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong having some good memories.
Yeah. All right, everybody, if you're in our area and you'd like to participate in a picnic, we're going to try to put one together. Email us, send an email to outreachnoah at gmail.com. And we're going to try to get something together here probably in the next month or so when the leaves start changing and it gets a little cooler, and just have a picnic, and we'll get that arranged. We'll try to figure it out where to be in the middle of everybody so everybody won't have to drive so far. And oh yes, now we're gonna go camping and have a real fireside chat. That's what. So, and it would be great to go camping for a couple of days.
That would be.
Yeah. So remember that, and we thank everybody that listened on Power Faith Radio. We thank those that's already sent some emails to us, and we thank you for those of watching through the YouTube channel, Outreach Noah. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell. You'll be notified of all videos going up, and share those videos with all your social media platforms. Don't forget to come on over to a Simple Walk Facebook page and join us there. And it's good to see. I always call her Joanna. Joanna, I'm sorry. I always call you Joanna Flynn Wake Up. I don't put the rest of it on. I just call you Joanna. I guess that's the mountain name that I call you. It's good to see you in here tonight. And Nana, I hope I said that correctly. And it's always good to see. Did I say it correctly? Nina. Okay, Nina. Remember, I had hooked on phonics. I see an I think I in there. So okay, so it's good to have y'all with us, and
good for Amwilla to have stayed up all night with us.
Yes, and of course it's always good to see Harold and Karen and Will with us, and of course Veronica, she's traveling all over the United States and Canada, and just seeing the world and all that good stuff. And of course, it's always good to see Bob from Chicago. Bob, I had a friend that came up to Chicago and stayed for a week. One of his old stomping grounds was right around Cook County Hospital. And is the hospital still up there? Is it? Okay. And so anyway, he went up and checked it out for a week, been driving up. And I said, there's a lot of places I want to go on vacation. Bob, I don't want you to take us the wrong way, but Chicago's not one of them. You know what I'm talking about? So unless I was coming to see you, Bob, if I was coming to see you, that would be a vacation, Bob. I would enjoy that. So, all right. And as always, Ronald from Australia, and Christopher. Where you at? Where you from, Christopher?
Central New York.
Central New York. And Nina, did I say it right this time? Where are you from, Nina? Australia. You guys is coming in, jumping on us here. And
tell Chrissy we miss her.
Yeah. And yeah, tell Chrissy we sure miss her. And Amuela is up in where's that? Canada. Up
4
there.
hours. If I remember right, 4 hours north of Toronto.
Yes.
4 hours north of Toronto.
Northeast.
Okay. When I see you, Amuel, I'm looking up. So, all right, everybody, come back and be with us next week. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.